The state of DC's extended universe isn't one to be envious of. Marvel's consistently strong lineup over the last decade culminates in next year's Infinity War, with a cinematic universe that looks to itself for inspiration. DC, on the other hand, while not as successful and certainly not as consistent, can offer an alternative by looking not to the previous 3 DCEU films, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Suicide Squad, but instead by looking to its stellar lineup of games and past movies, with the best story of them all being the latest release from NetherRealm Studios. Now, I'm of the minority opinion that 2013's Man of Steel was an absolute masterpiece, but I'm most certainly in the majority that believes Dawn of Justice and the unbelievably bad Suicide Squad are just not good enough. With all the money and talent behind those projects, DC just seems to be trying too hard when all they have to do is focus on simplicity. And that is what Injustice 2 does best, balancing multiple characters, having interesting themes, and introducing a deep villain. The Dark Knight trilogy, the 4 Batman Arkham games, and this new Injustice universe. They all focus on those 3 aspects, and they all succeed as great DC stories. The same cannot be said about the films in the DCEU, cutting between character arcs at random points, and throwing in villains that nobody cares about in an attempt to try something different or imitate Marvel's movies that do all of those things better is a recipe for terrible films. If DC wants to course correct their sinking ship, Injustice 2 lays down a blueprint for their solo origin stories as well as the future Justice League team-up films. A blueprint so important and so visibly apparent in DC's successful stories over the last few years that failure to adhere to it could end up in an extended universe that turns into a protracted one.
Today, the world welcomes its new masters, the Society!
I'm probably going to regret experiencing Injustice 2's team-up story before watching Justice League later this year, simply because it has raised my expectations and showed me how DC could, but probably won't, handle the inclusion of multiple characters in the Justice League movie. I can only compare it to how James Gunn handled the huge cast of characters in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Injustice 2 sets up rich character arcs that go their separate ways, and then smashes into one another when multiple characters are on screen at the same time. I felt like I had a meaningful connection to the struggles of each character and the disagreements they had with one another. It's not a simple case of hating whoever chooses the evil side, led by Superman, and rooting for the good side, led by Batman. The writers asked tough questions, and really made me think about how each character must feel in their specific situations. The empathy that this created made me look at the characters as morally gray. Who is actually right? Maybe they all are. I felt the brainwashing happen in my head. And I didn't try to stop it. I accidentally chose Superman during the final choice at the end of the game, and then had a 10-minute discussion with myself on whether or not it was actually accidental. Did I subconsciously choose Superman because I thought he was more in the right, or was the feeling one of true regret? And this happens for each and every one of the characters. A cast so big that almost all of them, besides Swamp Thing, he's just there.
What is this place?
Almost all of the other characters change throughout the adventure. If Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 made me take a note on how to handle multiple characters and give each of them a meaningful arc, then Injustice 2 laid the benchmark for handling multiple characters in stories.
Said the Joker was executed. Were you the one who...
I took one life to save millions.
But it wasn't just one, Cal, was it? How many? How many? Everywhere I go, people are afraid of this. Now I know why.
It's not how I wanted things, but humans... They've been slaughtering each other for millennia. I stopped that violence.
Whose son are you? Jor-El's? Or General Zod's?
The first question is, what are the themes of Injustice 2's story? It isn't enough to just have themes. They have to be interesting. Injustice 2 focuses on the morality of Batman and his insistence to have justice without death.
Even if I agreed that he should die, you can't. We need him alive to save the rest of our cities.
It focuses on what it means to be a Kryptonian and how much evil is needed before a symbol is corrupted.
This symbol should give people hope. He made them fear it.
But similarly, on how much the world needs a Kryptonian in the eyes of Superman.
How do I beat him?
You can't. Not without me.
I'll find a way.
This is my fight, Bruce! You need me! Bruce! Bruce! Bruce!
And finally, what I mentioned about the characters with their philosophical disagreements and what it means to be on the right side and the wrong side, and how far the heroes and villains are willing to go to establish what they believe in. The single most impressive aspect of Injustice 2's narrative is its staunch focus on these themes. Every piece of dialogue.
But when this is over, you need to choose. You're either with me or against me.
Every exchange before a battle.
I'm sorry, Cold, but you never hurt civilians. You're better than that.
Once upon a time I was.
Every grimace on Batman and Superman's face.
I couldn't save him.
Every minute of anguish Supergirl has to go through.
This isn't who we are. The House of El isn't ruled by fear.
All of it drives the themes of the story forward. Everything is laser focused, and the auteurs of Injustice 2's story, Sean Kittleson and Dominic Cianciolo, alongside John Greenberg and John Vogel, did not let up for a single moment. And if that wasn't impressive enough, it all takes place within the confines of a fighting game. This is an incredibly important point to appreciate. The writers have to connect every piece of dialogue and every philosophical disagreement between the heroes and the villains. All of that has to then result in one-on-one fights between these heroes and villains that doesn't feel like random battles with no meaning or weight. In other video game genres, the writers have a lot more leeway and aren't forced to set up specific fights at specific times. Injustice 2's narrative team somehow jumps over that hurdle and delivers fights with meaning and purpose and emotion. Having to tell a story, or rather choosing to tell a story, that consistently evokes the theme of the narrative is hard enough. To then add the challenge of having to set up fights along the way that make sense and are meaningful enough for the player to get engaged while they switch between a dozen characters is an impossible feat made possible by Injustice 2 and its writing team. The dilemma that Green Lantern has to deal with when fighting Atrocitus makes that battle so much more meaningful. And battle after battle, the stakes and the emotions are consistently that high.
No evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power! Green Lantern's lights!
My betas are taking position all across your planet. In 1 hour, they will explode in unison, burning the Earth's atmosphere, rendering this world a barren moon. Unless you surrender Kara Zor-El.
It all culminates in a villain character that combines the last 2 points. Brainiac forces the huge cast of heroes and villains to ask the questions that make up the themes of the story. How far is Batman now willing to go in order to save humanity? Is he able to uphold his principles, or will his insistence on not killing villains become Earth's downfall? Is Kara starting to put 2 and 2 together after Brainiac's demands, believing that the existence of the last 2 Kryptonians, in herself and Superman, is actually a detriment to the world they seek to protect? Brainiac is the flint that lights the fire by which Injustice 2's themes grow and flourish. And in the end, Brainiac's true significance is revealed when Superman acquires his ship and brings Batman to the dark side. This scene presents the themes of Superman and Supergirl and shows exactly how Brainiac was the catalyst that took those themes and questions to the next level. A powerful Superman is now even more convinced that only he, as a proud Kryptonian, can lead Earth for the better. while Supergirl is trapped, both in a force field and also trapped in her mind, questioning what the S symbol means, while pondering just how much more evil will be needed before the symbol is corrupted forever in the eyes of humanity. Injustice 2's finale combines all three pillars on which it delivers a successful story. Pillars that have served DC well wherever they have been implemented, and caused them to look lost wherever they have been ignored. Injustice 2 is a blueprint for the future of the DC Extended Universe, but the comic book company has to stop looking to its competitors and instead look within to find success and tell great stories.
Fighting on the same side, it felt like old times. But I guess we both knew it would end this way.
Do you remember that night when you told me Lois was pregnant?
You knew, even before I said anything.
That was a good memory.
From another lifetime.
I miss the people we were then.
Me too.